So this will be a couple questions from section 14.4 on just do this producer surplus, which gives us really the same understanding of what we would do with a consumer surplus, but we would have a different formula here. So we'll be given the formula either way on the exam, and we're going to use this. So what we are given is we're given P bar, the price, the average price of 160, right? We're told we need to round our answers to the nearest cent, which is great. But to do this, what we first need to find out is what would be the average demand. So we use this function P, which remember P is really the same. It's the same thing as S of Q. It's a function in Q. Okay, so first step, we know that our price is 160, and that's got to be equal to 130 plus E to the 0.01 Q, and we'll call that Q bar because that's what that's going to give us, because we're putting in P bar gives us Q bar, same point. And we just now need to solve for Q bar. So we will subtract 130 from both sides. That gives us 30 equals E to the 0.01 Q bar. To solve this for Q bar, we'll do natural log. And when we do that, the exponent, using rules of exponents, the rules of logarithms will come down in front. So we have natural log of 30 equals 0.01 Q bar, natural log of E. Natural log of E is 1. So 1 times this is itself. So what we're going to do is divide both sides by 0.01. 0.01. So Q bar. Now if you divide by 0.01, it's the same thing as multiplying by 100, right? The reciprocal of 1/100th is so this is the same thing as 1 over 1/100th. So if you take the reciprocal, you get 100. So we could write this simply. It looks a little prettier. 100 natural log of 30. Now, since we, going to round our answer at the end, it's best to keep it all together. So we'll do that. So again, what we do is we take our formula. We're going to go from 0 to Q bar, and Q bar is 100 natural log of 30. And again, you could put that in and get the decimal equivalent. What is it? It's something like, if you put that in, you'll find it's 340.1197382. You could put this in there as well, but this will carry all the decimal places for us. Then we need P bar, which is 160. And then we subtract S of Q, which is this function here. So then minus 130 plus E to the 0.01 Q dq. Now that negative is going to distribute. So integral from 0 to 100 natural log of 30. 60 minus 130, right? 60 minus 130 will be 30. And then this negative distributes over, and we get a minus E to 0.01 Q dq. So now we're ready to integrate and use the fundamental theorem of calculus to plug in our limits, our boundaries, and find the amount. So when we integrate 30, remember that's like 30x to the 0. I'm going to come over here. We end up with 30x, or in this case q, right? 30q. We integrate e to the 0.01q, and again remember, whenever you integrate e to the ax, that this integrates as 1 over a e to the ax, plus a constant if you want. But the reason is when we take this derivative, the a will come down. A divided by a is 1. We get back to what we started with. Okay, so then it's going to be minus 1 over 0.01, which is 100. And we'll rewrite that as that e to the 0.01 q. So that's this integrated. And we're going to evaluate this from 0 to 100 natural log of 30. Okay, so we'll go ahead and plug those in. 30, 100 natural log of 30. That's being plugged in for q, minus, I'm going to rewrite this 1 over 0.01 as 100, e to the 0.01, we'll plug in q here, 100 natural log of 30. You can see this, take 0.01 times 100, that's going to be equal to 1. The decimal over 2 places. Okay, and so this is really just e to the natural log of 30, right? E to the natural log, those are inverses, so they cancel out. This is just going to be equal to 30. And then so this part is 30. 30 times 100 is going to give us 3,000. But you could also plug all that in. Anyway, we get 100 times 30. $3,000. Over here, we'll get 3,000 natural log of 30. And now's the time to go ahead and plug all that in. Let's see, let me come down and grab my calculator so you can see. Here we go. So we'll take 3,000. Well, actually, I'm going to do, oh, but I put 34. See, you got to be careful. I got to be careful. Oops. Natural log of 30. Okay, let's come back. Where's that calculator? Okay, so we'll take the natural log. Oops. You have to put in 30 first. Take its natural log. It gives you that answer. We multiply it by 3,000. We get this number, and then we subtract 3,000, and we get that number, 7203.59. Did I get that right? The answer saying 7303. Maybe I just let's take a look at it again. 7203. What did I do wrong? Oh. Yes. I got a little too ahead of myself. Again, I forgot to plug in the backside. So we're not done yet. We got to subtract when we plug in 0. 30 times 0, that is 0. But when we plug in 0 here, we get e to the 0, which is 1 and 100, right? So 100 times 1, we've got to subtract 100 more. So if we do that, but it's got a negative on it, so that's a negative 100. So we end up adding 100. We add 100, we'll get 7303. Okay, so yeah, don't forget to plug this in. I was just looking, oh, that part's going to be 0, but this part back here is not 0. This is 1, and that's 100, so it's minus 100, minus 100, and there we go. Okay, so evaluate both the upper end, which we did here, minus the lower end. Okay, so that was that one, and let's go ahead and jump into another one. This one should be a little more straightforward. Again, it's just a linear equation. It's a little bit easier to solve. Show all your work step by step. Okay, producer's surplus. So since it's producer's surplus, we can go back up here. Again, in the exam, they will provide it. They're not providing it here because you can just look up and see it on, they provide it for the first one. So P minus S of Q. Let's just remind P minus S of Q dq, and we're going from 0 to Q bar actually, and P bar is going to be P bar, or this P is going to be, as we're going to see, will be P bar. We're given P bar, so now we need to find what Q bar is. So when P is 29, then we have 13 plus 2Q, and since this is the average price, this will be the average demand. As you'll see, a little easier to solve. We subtract 13 from both sides. We get 16, and this gives us 2 Q bar. Divide both sides by 2, and we get that Q bar is equal to 8. So we're going to take the interval, or the integral, from 0 to 8. P bar is 29 minus the function S of Q. Well, this is the function here, S of Q, when I plug in Q. So it's going to be minus 13 plus 2Q dq. Now remember to distribute this to both terms. 29 minus 13, well, we've already got that, that's 16. Negative goes on to here, 2Q, and we're integrating from 0 to 8 dq. Now when we integrate 16, remember that's like Q to the 0, so we get 16Q to the first. When we integrate this, we add 1 to the exponent, so that's going to be 2Q squared, and divide by that new exponent, so the 2's will cancel out, right? 2 divided by 2 is 1, and we're going to take that from 0 to 8. Now this one I can get a little sloppy. When I plug in 0 for both of this whole bottom half becomes 8. Oh, sorry, it becomes 0, sorry. So to evaluate this, we put in the upper end minus 8 plugged in for Q squared, right? And we subtract off the bottom end, which I'll go ahead and put that in just as a reminder, but we're going to get 0 here. So that's all 0, so we subtract nothing off. 16 times 8 is 128. 8 squared is 64. I'll just emphasize that that is 0. 128 minus 64 is 64. And so that tells us that our producer surplus, number 8, is going to be $64, which matches. Okay, so that's a couple using producer's surplus. Similar for consumer's surplus, but again the P is on the other side. It's getting subtracted, so just use that formula, but the same kind of a process. All right, good luck.